¿Y qué estoy pensando para la operativa de hoy? Pues vemos que el reporte de la Reserva Federal pues se quedó igual lo previsto. La tasa de interés se quedó estándar en un 5.50%, lo cual es bueno para el mercado, no representa ningún tipo de impacto. Ahora tenemos a la Reserva Federal dando su conferencia de prensa a las 2:30. Ahí es donde se le hace pregunta a Jerome Power, que es el chief de la Reserva Federal, ¿no? Entonces eso lo podemos encontrar si queremos ver la conferencia de la Reserva Federal, que también mueve mucho el mercado. Simplemente nos vamos a YouTube y en YouTube pues buscamos Federal Reserve y ahí aparece el live de la conferencia. La conferencia tendrá fecha o se estará dando a las 2:30 de la tarde. ¿Qué pasa con mi internet? Está muy lento. Federal Reserve Meeting, ya tenemos algunos youtubers haciéndole nada más y nada menos que la referencia al Federal Reserve Meeting, Bloomberg, Federal Reserve. Entonces, para yo encontrar el portal oficial de la Reserva Federal, yo simplemente escribo aquí Fed Meeting Live y me aparecerá en Bloomberg Forward, pero ellos tienen su propio portal, que es este que está aquí. Este es el canal oficial de la Reserva Federal. Ya ellos están live, como pueden ver, para el live. Voy a estar viendo la conferencia de la Reserva Federal 1 de mayo del 2024. ¡Wow! Ya de mi cumpleaños. Vamos a darle like. Vamos a estar viendo nada más y nada menos que se discute en este mini, y usualmente lo que Jerome dice pues mueve el mercado. En the meantime, en el tiempo, pues estoy esperando que este canal que está aquí, que fue el día entero, literalmente miren cómo el mercado europeo y asiático se mantiene en una zona de rango, de aproximadamente 116 puntos. La apertura fueron muy pequeña, igual que la americana, porque se estaba esperando nada más y nada menos que esta noticia importante de la Reserva Federal. Recuérdense que ayer en el video estuve comentando acerca de lo que podía pasar, ¿no? El día de hoy en el mercado no era factible operar muy temprano en el precio, porque estaba el Non-Farm Unemployment, estaba el PMI, estaba también el Federal Reserve Fund Raise. Esto es importantísimo, y como esto es importantísimo, miren cómo se ha mantenido estándar. Ya julio, septiembre, noviembre, January, enero, March y ahora mayo se ha mantenido igual, no ha cambiado. Eso puede crear estabilidad, pero a la misma vez muchas personas quieren que bajen esto porque la inflación está muy alta, y muchos quieren que lo suban porque la inflación está muy alta, y otros quieren que lo bajen porque los préstamos están inalcanzables. Pero eso es para que las personas no pidan tanto préstamo y se suben los niveles de interés. Pero ayer estuve comentando de que tiene una cuenta de ahorro para eso, para una persona que tiene su cuenta de ahorro es beneficioso, para una persona que va a adquirir una deuda, un interés alto no es beneficioso. Para mí este viene siendo el piso, este es el precio importante, el precio aquí devuelve, este viene siendo más o menos el piso de lo que espero. A mí me gusta verlo más en el canal, en mi gráfica de línea, porque no sé, creo que hace menos bulla verlo aquí. Mínimos iguales, el mercado lanza. Mínimos iguales, el mercado se lanza. Aquí tenemos 3 toques y aquí tenemos, como claro, todo un minuto. Debiera pasarlo a 15 minutos. ¿Qué estoy esperando? Estoy esperando exactamente el movimiento de esta área para buscar un largo. De esta área para buscar un largo en 2 minutos, buscaría un largo, protegiéndome por aquí detrás. Vamos a ver, pero me tiene que dar entrada el precio en 1 minuto. Para darme entrada pues se necesita presentar un patrón de vela que yo usualmente opero para poder entrar, no entrar lo que es en emoción, sino entrar por técnica. Y estoy esperando en 2 minutos que se pase, pero en 15 minutos que es donde más estoy analizando el precio. Para mí, que suba por esta zona y comience a ser máximo, pues entonces estaría buscando que el precio llegara por lo menos a esta área. Así que seguimos en 2 minutos buscando la probable entrada que se dé en el precio. Sí, considero que por aquí ya podía haber yo entrado, por aquí con mi stop loss por aquí abajo, etcétera, etcétera. Pero ¿qué pasa? No entro en esa área porque el precio todavía no me ha roto esta área. Esta área para mí es importante que el precio la rompa. Por eso tengo el círculo en este lado y para mí es sumamente importante que el precio entre a esta área, rompa por aquí para continuación alcista, con mi stop ubicado por aquí abajo en el piso de aquí. Me gustaría también ver el precio que volviera al canal. No es necesario, pero me gustaría ver que el precio vuelva al canal ya para mí. Un rompimiento por aquí ya para mí es suficiente para yo determinar de que el precio ha tenido un impulso alcista o está moviéndose a la alza, está queriendo recuperar. Nada más y nada menos tenemos un mercado en rango que ahora mismo rompe hacia arriba por el reporte de la Reserva Federal. La Reserva Federal tiene meeting y por aquí estamos pendientes a ver dónde está. Este fue aquí. Estaríamos pendientes para la 2 y 3. Que ya está la ley de costos para que se dé el meeting. Yo no me voy a desesperar, me voy a mantener paciente, voy a buscar entradas, sí, se está dando por los movimientos, pero eventualmente tiene que venir un retroceso. Cuando ese retroceso entonces venga, entonces yo podría poner una operatividad en este precio. Porque los reportes y más de las reservas federales explotan el precio. Me gustaría ver qué pasa aquí. Pero ya estoy en zona de compra. Para mí ya esta área es zona de compra. Me gustaría ver qué pasa cuando toque esa línea, que ha sido una línea de soporte en el precio, un canal importante en mis velas, no en mi vela, sino en mi gráfica de líneas. Ha sido un soporte bastante importante. El precio ha venido tocado ahí, ha tocado aquí, y el precio se mantuvo por ahí. Aquí estaba esperando una reacción, pero como hoy era un día tan importante, 1 de mayo, que los 1 de mayo son importantes, las personas importantes, los lugares importantes, los movimientos importantes tienen que pasar los 1 de mayo. Las personas importantes que cumplen años cumplen 1 de mayo. Ok, vamos a ver. Aquí viene el retroceso. Estaría buscando más o menos una operativa con un stop loss por aquí. Sí, esas serían mis expectativas de hoy. Aquí viene el retroceso en 2 minutos.
Good afternoon. My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people.
Aquí vamos.
The economy has made considerable progress toward our dual mandate objectives. Inflation has eased substantially over the past year, while the labor market has remained strong. And that's very good news. But inflation is still too high. Further progress in bringing it down is not assured, and the path forward is uncertain. We are fully committed to returning inflation to our 2% goal. Restoring price stability is essential to achieve a sustainably strong labor market that benefits all. Today, the FOMC decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged and to continue to reduce our securities holdings, though at a slower pace. Our restrictive stance of monetary policy has been putting downward pressure on economic activity and inflation, and the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals have moved toward better balance over the past year. However, in recent months, inflation has shown a lack of further progress toward our 2% objective, and we remain highly attentive to inflation risks. I'll have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. Although GDP growth moderated from 3.4% in the fourth quarter of last year to 1.6% in the first quarter, private domestic final purchases, which excludes inventory investment, government spending, and net exports, and usually sends a clearer signal on underlying demand, was 3.1% in the first quarter, as strong as the second half of 2023. Consumer spending has been robust over the past several quarters, even as high interest rates have weighed on housing and equipment investment. Improving supply conditions have supported resilient demand and the strong performance of the U.S. economy over the past year. The labor market remains relatively tight, but supply and demand conditions have come into better balance. Payroll job gains averaged 276,000 jobs per month in the first quarter, while the unemployment rate remains low at 3.8%. Strong job creation over the past year has been accompanied by an increase in the supply of workers, reflecting increases in participation among individuals aged 25 to 54 years and a continued strong pace of immigration. Nominal wage growth has eased over the past year and the jobs-to-workers gap has narrowed, but labor demand still exceeds the supply of available workers. Inflation has eased notably over the past year, but remains above our longer-run goal of 2%. Total PCE prices rose 2.7% over the 12 months ending in March. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.8%.
Order filled.
The inflation data received so far this year have been higher than expected. Although some measures of short-term inflation expectations have increased in recent months, longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. The committee decided at today's meeting to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 5.25% to 5.5%, and to continue the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings, though at a slower pace. Over the past year, as labor market tightness has eased, and inflation has declined, the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals have moved toward better balance. The economic outlook is uncertain, however, and we remain highly attentive to inflation risks. We've stated that we do not expect that it will be appropriate to reduce the target range for the federal funds rate until we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. So far this year, the data have not given us that greater confidence. In particular, and as I noted earlier, readings on inflation have come in above expectations. It is likely that gaining such greater confidence will take longer than previously expected. We are prepared to maintain the current target range for the federal funds rate for as long as appropriate. We're also prepared to respond to an unexpected weakening in the labor market. We know that reducing policy restraint too soon or too much could result in a reversal of the progress we've seen on inflation. At the same time, reducing policy restraint too late or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. In considering any adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. Policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face in pursuing both sides of our dual mandate. We will continue to make decisions meeting by meeting. Turning to our balance sheet, the committee decided at today's meeting to slow the pace of decline in our securities holdings, consistent with the plans we released previously. Specifically, the cap on Treasury redemptions will be lowered from the current $60 billion per month to $25 billion per month as of June 1. Consistent with the committee's intention to hold primarily Treasury securities in the longer run, we're leaving the cap on agency securities unchanged per month, and we will reinvest any proceeds in excess of this cap in Treasury securities. With principal payments on agency securities currently running at about $15 billion per month, total portfolio runoff will amount to roughly $40 billion per month. The decision to slow the pace of runoff does not mean that our balance sheet will ultimately shrink by less than it would otherwise, but rather allows us to approach its ultimate level more gradually. In particular, slowing the pace of runoff will help ensure a smooth transition, reducing the possibility that money markets experience stress and thereby facilitating the ongoing decline in our securities holdings that are consistent with reaching the appropriate level of ample reserves. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Restoring price stability is essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Howard Schneider with Reuters. A question to follow up, if I could. Do you consider the current policy rate still, are you confident that it's sufficiently restrictive to get inflation back to 2%?
So I do think the evidence shows, pretty clearly that policy is restrictive and is weighing on demand. And there are a few places I would point to for that. You can start with the labor market. So demand is still strong, the demand side of the labor market in particular. But it's cooled from its extremely high level of a couple of years ago. And you see that in job openings. You saw it, more evidence of that today in the JOLTS report, as you'll know. It's still higher than pre-pandemic, but it has been coming down both in the Indeed report and in the JOLTS report. That's demand cooling. The same is true of quits and hiring rates, which have essentially normalized. I also we look at surveys of workers and, surveys of workers and businesses and ask workers, are jobs plentiful, and ask businesses, are workers plentiful? Is it easy to find workers? And you've seen that the answers to those have come back down to pre-pandemic levels. You also see in interest-sensitive spending like housing and investment, you also see that higher interest rates are weighing on those activities. So I do think it's clear that that policy is restrictive.
Sufficiently restrictive, I guess.
So I would say that we believe it is restrictive, and we believe over time it will be sufficiently restrictive. That will be a question that that the data will have to answer.
So as a follow-up, if inflation
Pardon me.
continues running roughly sideways as it has been, the job market stays reasonably strong, unemployment low, and expectations are anchored and maintained, would you disrupt that for...
Expectations are not anchored?
Or anchored.
Or anchored.
Stable, roughly. Would you disrupt that for the last half point on PCE?
I don't want to get into complicated hypotheticals, but I would say that, we're committed to retaining our current restrictive stance of policy for as long as is appropriate, and we'll do that.
Gina. Thanks for taking our questions, Chair Powell. I wonder, obviously Michelle Bowman has been saying that there is a risk that rates may need to increase further, although it's not her baseline outlook. I wonder if you see that as a risk as well, and if so, what change in conditions would merit considering raising rates at this point?
So I think it's unlikely that the next policy rate move will be a hike. I'd say it's unlikely. Our policy focus is really what I just mentioned, which is how long to keep policy restrictive. You ask, what would it take? I think we'd need to see persuasive evidence that our policy stance is not sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation sustainably down to 2% over time. That's not what we think we're seeing, as I mentioned. But that's something like that is what it would take. We'd look at the totality of the data to answer that question. That would include inflation expectations, and all the other data too.
Would that be like a reacceleration in inflation?
Well, I think, again, the test, what I'm saying is if we were to come to that conclusion that policy weren't tight enough to achieve that, so it would be the totality of all the things we'd be looking at. It could be expectations, it could be a combination of things, but if we reach that conclusion and we don't see evidence supporting that conclusion, that's what it would take, I think, for us to take that step.
Chris.
Thank you, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. You didn't mention the idea that rates are at a peak for the cycle, and didn't mention the idea that it might be appropriate to cut rates later this year, as you have at previous press conferences. So has the Fed sort of dropped its easing bias? Where are you standing on that?
So let me address cuts. So obviously, our decisions that we make on our policy rate are going to depend on the incoming data, how the outlook is evolving, and the balance of risks, as always. And we'll look at the totality of the data. So I think, and we think, that policy is well positioned to address different paths that the economy might take. And we've said that we don't think it would be appropriate to dial back our restrictive policy stance until we've gained greater confidence that inflation is moving down sustainably toward 2%. So, for example, let me take a path. If we did have a path where inflation proves more persistent than expected and where the labor market remains strong, but inflation is moving sideways and we're not gaining greater confidence, well, that would be a case in which it could be appropriate to hold off on rate cuts. I think there's also other paths that the economy could take which would cause us to want to consider rate cuts, and those would be, two of those paths would be that we do gain greater confidence, as we've said, that inflation is moving sustainably down to 2%, and another path could be, an unexpected weakening in the labor market, for example. So those are paths in which you could see us cutting rates. So I think it really will depend on the data. In terms of peak rate, I think really it's the same question. I think the data will have to answer that question for us.
Well, and could you just follow on the path where you might not cut? Is that, you mentioned that it would be inflation persistent. Is inflation, would that be the key data in making that decision, or could you expand a bit more on that? Thank you.
Again, we've set ourselves a test that for us to begin to reduce policy restriction, we'd want to be confident that inflation is moving sustainably down to 2%. And for sure, one of the things we'd be looking at is the performance of inflation. We'd also be looking at inflation expectations. We'd be looking at the whole story, but clearly incoming inflation data would be at the very heart of that decision.
Nick.
Nick Timrose of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, to what extent has the easing in financial conditions since November contributed to the reacceleration in growth? And do you now expect a period of sustained tighter financial conditions will be needed to resume the sort of disinflation the economy saw last year?
So I think it's hard to know that. I think we'll be able to look back, from down the road and look back and understand it better. If you look at, let's look at growth. Really, what we've seen so far this year in the first quarter is growth coming in about consistent with where it was last year. I know GDP came in lower, but you don't see an acceleration in growth. I mean, the thought would be that financial conditions loosened in December, and that caused an uptick in activity, and that caused inflation. Presumably that's or tightening in the labor market. You don't really see that happening. What you see is economic activity at a level that's roughly the same as last year. So, what's causing this inflation we'll have a better sense of that over time. I don't know that there's an obvious connection there, though, with the easing of financial conditions. In terms of tightening, you're right. I mean, rates are certainly higher now and have been for some time than they were before the December meeting, and they're higher, and that's tighter financial conditions, and that's appropriate given what inflation has done in the first quarter.
You've said in the past that stronger growth wouldn't necessarily preclude rate cuts. I wonder, would continued strength in the labor market change your view about the appropriate stance of policy if it was accompanied by signs that wage growth was reaccelerating?
So I just want to be careful that we don't target wage growth or the labor market. And remember what we saw last year: very strong growth, a really tight labor market, and a historically fast decline in inflation. So and that's because we know there are two forces at work here. There's the unwinding of the pandemic-related supply side distortions and demand side distortions, and there's also monetary policy, restrictive monetary policy. So I wouldn't rule out that something like that can't continue. I wouldn't give up at this point on further things happening on the supply side, either because we do see that companies still report that there are supply side issues that they're facing, and also, even when the supply side issues are solved, it should take some time for that to affect economic activity and ultimately inflation. So there are still those things. So I don't like to say that either growth or a strong labor market in and of itself would automatically create problems on inflation, because of course it didn't do that last year. You ask about wages. We also don't target wages. We target price inflation. It is one of the inputs. The point with wages is, of course, we like everyone else like to see high wages, but we also want to see them not eaten up by high inflation. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to cool the economy and work with what's happening on the supply side to bring the economy back to 2% inflation. And part of that will probably be having wage increases move down incrementally toward levels that are more sustainable.
Rachel.
Hi, Chair Powell, Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thanks for taking our questions. You talked about needing time to gain more confidence that inflation is sustainably moving back down to 2%. It's May now. Do you have time this year to cut 3 times, just given the calendar?
Yeah, I'm not really thinking of it that way. What we said is that we need to be more confident, and we've said, my colleagues and I today said, that we didn't see progress in the first quarter, and I've said that it appears then that it's going to take longer for us to reach that point of confidence. So I don't know how long it'll take. I can just say that when we get that confidence, then rate cuts will be in scope, and I don't know exactly when that will be.
And with hindsight, are there any signs that you can look back on now, looking at the reports from January or February or March, that suggest?
Yo quiero agregar algo aquí en lo que estoy en esta operativa. Jerome está hablando acerca de la economía. El mercado pues ha hecho lo que yo estaba esperando. Está por arriba del área que yo estaba esperando. Mi stop loss estaba por aquí, por esta área. Entonces yo estoy buscando un 2 a 1. Ya el precio alcanzó el 50% de mi target, que simplemente es 649 a 2 contratos. Ese vendría siendo, aquí en esta área vendría siendo el 2 a 1, que es el que estoy manejando. Y pues entonces ya dejo de tener riesgo en el mercado y pongo mi operativa en break-even. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Break-even es un término básico para decir que me pongo donde ni estoy perdiendo ni estoy ganando. Simplemente estoy agarrando la posición. Y en este momento este hace buena pregunta. Un segundo.
What's the dynamic by which you expect them to work out in the coming months and quarters?
Yeah. So we will, we will put the thing, we have put the thing under a microscope. I will say nothing is going to come out of that's going to change the view. I think that, in fact, we didn't gain confidence and that it's going to take longer to get that confidence. But confidence, I just think, you know the story. What's happened since December is you've seen higher goods inflation than expected, and you've seen higher non-housing services inflation than expected, and those two are working together to sort of be higher than we had thought. And there are stories behind how that happened. And you know, I think my expectation is that we will, over the course of this year, see inflation move back down. That's my forecast. I think my confidence in that is lower than it was because of the data that we've seen. So we're looking at those things. We also continue to expect, and I continue to expect, that housing services inflation, given where market rents are, those will show up in measured housing services inflation over time. We believe that it will. It looks like that there are substantial lags between when lower market rates turned up and for new tenants, and when it shows up for existing tenants or for in-housing services. So,
if I could just follow up, is there a bit of a contradiction in the idea that you are reducing quantitative tightening, which is sort of an easing, while you're holding rates steady at a restrictive rate to try to slow and cool the economy and inflation? Thank you.
I wouldn't say that, no. I mean, the active tool of monetary policy is, of course, interest rates. And this is a plan we've long had in place to slow, really not in order to provide accommodation to the economy, but to be less restrictive to the economy. It really is to ensure that the process of shrinking the balance sheet down to where we want to get it is a smooth one and doesn't wind up with financial market turmoil the way it did the last time we did this, and the only other time we've ever done this.
Craig.
Craig Forrest from Bloomberg. Two questions. First, simple one. Given the run of data since March, has the probability in your mind of no cuts this year increased or stayed the same? That's the first question. Second question. Chair Powell, you joined the board in 2012, and I'm sure you remember, as I do, what the jobless recovery was like. Lawyers, accountants, all kinds of highly qualified people who couldn't get jobs. And given your history there, I wonder if there's an argument for being more patient with inflation here. We have strong productivity growth that's helping wages go up. We have good employment. And so it seems to me there's a lot of hysteria about inflation. I agree, it's, nobody likes it, but is there an argument for being patient and working with the economic cycle to get it down over time? Thank you.
So on your first question, I don't have a probability estimate for you, but all I can say is that, we've said that we didn't think it'd be appropriate to cut until we were more confident that inflation was moving sustainably on 2%. We didn't get, our confidence in that didn't increase in the first quarter, and in fact, what really happened was we came to the view that it will take longer to get that confidence. And I think I think it's, the economy has been very hard for forecasters broadly to predict its path, but there are paths to not cutting, and there are paths to cutting. It's really going to depend on the data. In terms of the employment mandate, to your point, if you go back a couple of years, our sort of framework document says that when you look at the two mandate goals, and if one of them's further away from goal than the other, then you focus on that one. It's the time to get back there times the times how far it is from the goal, and that was clearly inflation. So our focus was very much on inflation, and this is what we referred to in the statement. As inflation has come down now to below 3% on a 12-month basis, it's become we're now focusing the other goal, the employment goal, now comes back in to focus, and so we are focusing on it. And that's how we think about that.
Claire.
Claire Jones, Financial Times. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to ask the questions. Just to go back to the answer before the previous one, it seemed to suggest that you think the
Vamos a bajarle un poquito el sonido de Financial. Ok. Bueno, aquí estamos en la operativa. Live, Jerome está hablando. Jerome Power, 1 de mayo. Hemos entrado back in the rain. Estamos esperando esta zona para pues cerrar operativa. Mi entrada fue aquí. Estimado rompimiento fue en esta área. Mi target es aquí. Ya yo estoy protegido en esta zona y me sentiría bien con este target. Me sentiría perfecto. ¿Okay? Me sentiría perfecto porque era lo que tenía estipulado a perder en esta área. Y el mercado se trata de sacar rentabilidad. Y ya en esa área, pues para mí, mi operativa está siendo cumplida. No ha tenido un retroceso importante el precio luego de que Jerome estuviera hablando. Podría aguantar la operativa hasta esta zona. El tiempo no está de mi lado. El tiempo no está de mi lado. Pero podría aguantar la operativa hasta esta zona. ¿Qué piensa Giovanni en este caso? ¿Qué piensa Giovanni en este caso? Tenemos una operativa que ya ha alcanzado 160 puntos, 170, está oscilando por esa área. Tenemos un break-even, tenemos una vela que para mí quisiera que terminara azul y luego venga una blanca y la destruya. Eso quiere decir que el movimiento sigue con fuerza alcista, o lo que se conoce como una eliminación fuerte en 15 minutos. Me gustaría ver eso. Le faltan 2 minutos a esta vela para que haga eso. Ahí está mi target, $483 en el mercado. Ya estoy break-even, no tengo ningún tipo de riesgo en el mercado. Y nada, pues seguimos la operativa, seguimos viendo lo que está hablando Jerome. Y estamos aquí en el mercado.
And would that imply that maybe policy isn't tight enough?
I think I would take that question this way. We saw a year of very high productivity growth in 2023. And we saw a year of, I think, negative productivity growth in 2022. So I think it's hard to draw from the data. The question is, will productivity run? There are two questions. One is, will productivity run, persistently above its longer run trend? I don't think we know that. In terms of potential output, though, if that's a separate question. We've had what amounts to a significant increase in the potential output of the economy that's not about productivity. It was about having more labor, frankly, both through, in 2023, both through participation and also through immigration. So we're very much like other forecasters and economists getting our arms around what that means for potential output this year and next year and last year for that matter too. So I think in that case, I think you really do have a significant increase in potential output, but you've also got, so you've got more supply, but those people also come in, they work, they have jobs, they spend, so you've also got demand. So it may be that you get more supply than you get demand at the beginning, but ultimately it should be neither inflationary nor disinflationary over a longer period.
Well, you said earlier that at this point you're not really considering rate increases. If growth is higher, but you're not considering rate increases, does that imply that you're more worried about causing the economy to slow too much than you are about inflation taking off again?
No, I think we believe our policy stance is in a good place and is appropriate to the current situation. We believe it's
Ok, ya para mí estoy finalizado con mi operativa. ¿Qué estaba esperando? El mercado puede seguir subiendo los puntos que desee. Ya yo simplemente tomé mi ganancia, entendí dónde estaba mi punto de salida. Me hubiese gustado, y estaba pensándolo de esta manera, Giovanni, me hubiese gustado que esta vela que estuviera aquí hubiese terminado pues azul y hubiese venido una blanca y ¡boom! Hubiese eliminado ese azul. Entonces yo tomaría en cuenta ese detalle y me pusiera detrás de la vela para irle haciendo trailing stop loss hasta llegar a este punto. Al la vela hacer esto, ok, en 15 minutos, pues entonces yo lo que hago es que salgo mi operativa en el target que ya previamente yo tenía calculado. Aquí era mi punto de entrada por este círculo era mi punto de entrada. No necesariamente tenía que ser en el rompimiento, pero sí en esa área era mi punto de entrada. El patrón de entrada se me presentó. El patrón de entrada se me presentó aquí y ahí fue que lo tomé. El patrón de entrada se me presentó ahí fue que lo tomé. El mercado sigue dando, en 2 minutos sigue corriendo con fuerza, pero ya en esa área yo acabo de salir del precio, por lo que les compartí.
¿Me están llamando?
¿Qué pasó? Yo estoy en los audífonos, dime. ¿Ah?
Penny. Yo le dije que cuando yo te llamara muchas veces, te están llamando por ese lugar, no sé quién es. Cuando yo viniera donde ti, yo te decía, Mara, te estoy llamando. Y tú vas a decir, ¿qué pasó? Yo estoy en los audífonos, dime.
Ah, bueno, ganaste.
¿Te están llamando?
¿Quién?
Yo no sé.
Dame, tráemelo. Ok.
¿Y de qué
Entonces, terminé con mi operativa el día de hoy, 1 de mayo. Pues es un día positivo. La velita, vamos a soplar la velita. Vamos a bailar, vamos a soplar la velita. Vamos a comprar un bizcocho. Se dio la operativa. Ay, Dios mío, ya cuando tú tienes 5 años en esta profesión, de verdad, y tú has quemado varias cuentas fondeadas, has quemado tu propio capital, luego vuelve y te fondea, luego vuelve y te quema, luego vuelve el capital, ¿no? Es como una montaña rusa. Y entonces yo entiendo a esos traders que al principio ven operativas así de esta magnitud y se emocionan. ¡Ay, Dios mío, qué sé yo cuánto! Además, no todos los traders pudieran tener la facilidad de nada más y nada menos que operar cuando está este señor hablando. Cuando este señor está hablando, la cosa se pone color de hormiga. Y hay que tener 2 cocos para poder operar el mercado cuando eso pasa. Se tiene un plan de trading, se tiene un plan de acción, se tiene un plan de entrada, se tiene un plan de salida. Todo eso se tiene y se tiene que ejecutar al pie de la letra. Y eso fue lo que yo hice. Simplemente mi gráfico de línea que está por aquí me dice, mira, tienes un canal, esta zona es buena para comprar, el precio está consolidado en esta área, está haciendo una pequeña lateralización. Si rompe por aquí, entonces está buscando un mínimo por aquí, que viene siendo esta área, estos mínimos. Si rompe por aquí, está buscando máximo por aquí, por estos pisos del mercado. Y mañana es otro día que puedes buscar el techo del canal. Pero por aquí, tu operativa, dado la entrada y el stop loss, este viene siendo el 2-1. Aquí sal de la operativa y retírate del mercado. Y eso exactamente fue lo que hice. Tenía pensado dejar la operativa un poco más adentro si en 15 minutos el mercado hubiese hecho lo que planteé aquí. Esta vez lo hubiese terminado un poquito azul y esta vez hubiese sido blanca. Pues entonces ya ahí yo tomaría un pensamiento hacia esta zona. Pero como no fue así, no estoy para aguantar este retroceso. Me fui del mercado. Aparte que es mi cumpleaños, ustedes pueden ver cuando yo estoy en mi casa, yo mismo veo cuando estoy en mi casa, yo mami, cómo es la cosa. Debería trabajar eso para que no me interrumpan en el trading, pero imagínense, ya me tienen, la familia me tiene y los niños y todo, y yo, ya ellos me ven tanto en el mercado que para ellos es normal venir y decirme esto y el otro cuando me ven operando. Entonces ya como que me acostumbré a eso. Bueno, el día de hoy ha sido productivo, positivo, día de mi cumpleaños, ya me voy a celebrar, ya me voy a tranquilizar, esto era lo que yo estaba buscando por hoy, se dio, pues entonces como se pudo dar también stop loss, normal, cero euforia, cero locura, es lo que es y es así, el mercado es así, un mar de oportunidades, se toman las oportunidades y las que no se toman. Así que listo. Esto ha sido todo por la operativa de el 1 de mayo. ¡Día de mi cumpleaños! ¡Guau! ¡Pum! ¡Listo!